Hey everyone, this is Saba and Berto, and we are live in Dubai.
Live in Dubai.
So today we have very special guests. We have very special guests. It's not only special guests, okay? So she's a journalist and media face, and wearing 15 years in the media and journalism, you know. So we are proud to bring Jessy. Welcome to the show, Jessy.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
I'm Instagramming. You don't mind, do you?
Of course, we are.
Multitasking.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So we all need to do, you know?
Yeah.
Tell me.
Just,
If you don't ask me, I'm going to start asking you guys.
no, you can ask us.
Yeah, who's the journalist here?
I'm used to asking the questions. So you,
Okay.
you should start, because I will go ahead and start.
Yes. So okay, how you find yourself in this space? Like
In this space?
how you go to journalism? Tell us about the start.
The very beginning.
We are going back to the time.
It was by accident.
Okay.
I was a college student in the American University of Beirut. I was maybe 2 years before graduation, and I needed pocket money.
Okay.
I looked around. The usual part-time jobs weren't. The pay is not so good. I needed some cash.
This is true.
College tuition is really expensive. And I remember seeing a small flyer in the mailroom in college that just asked 5 questions. Are you talkative? Are you vibrant? Are you, do you have like a extrovert personality? Are you looking for some extra money? All this, I was like, tick, 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 tick.
Check
and
all
then
the boxes.
I was like, yeah, I do. I'm loud. I talk a lot. I'm vibrant. I am looking for extra money. And then they said, just come for a screen test in a local TV station in Lebanon, Future TV, which is now no longer. Yeah. And I remember going there, doing a screen test. I got a call the next day saying, hey, congrats, you're going to be our new weather girl. I said, okay, wow. Weather, fine by me, They paid well for a student. I went there, started training as the weather girl, and then maybe 3 days later, the executive producer is like, yeah, you talk too much for the weather girl. You're going to be our main anchor. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And that's how it started. I started with that show, I think for a year and some, until I graduated. I really liked it, and I thought I want to study journalism, not just practice it. So I applied, got into a master's program in Boston, in Emerson College, and then the jobs started coming.
You started rolling in from there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you choose the vertical, like, because the journalism, there is a lot of like editors, cameras. So have you was ready to be in front of camera? Like how you imagine this in your head?
No, I wasn't ready to be on camera, but I honestly just did it. I remember the first job that I got that was officially on camera after my master's was being a reporter for BBC Arabic in Washington, D.C. And I remember, I used to get really nervous being on camera. I had to practice and practice so much when I'm at home to know what to say and how to say it in time and to make sure you say the right keywords. You never really get used to being on camera.
Yes,
it's
of
always
course.
Yes, it's always a little bit, but it's addictive. It's addictive when you realize that you have information to share, that you are sharing stories that inspire other people, especially the youth in the region. And that's what got me to continue.
Okay, and also I see also that you work also on the like a news format, that you go in front line, and how it felt that being from the weather and going front line news, with the press, gelid, in middle of action and bullets.
Well, so after working for BBC in Washington for a good 4 to 5 years, I decided to make a switch. For me, I have this biological clock. Every 5-6 years, I need a change.
Yes.
A step up, something different, something new.
Yeah.
I made that leap to Sky News Arabia in Abu Dhabi to become a deputy news editor and a journalist. And as you know, the journalism field is quite concentrated.
Correct.
There's hundreds and hundreds of journalists and thousands of presenters. Yeah. So I needed to think of a way where I would bring in a content that not everybody else is doing.
Correct.
And that was what got me into military news.
As a woman.
Wow.
As a woman, and because I saw that no other woman is doing military news, I saw that females were, and partly not because of lack of skills. There's plenty of female journalists that now we see, especially after the start of the war in Syria, started being on the front lines. But I remember in the 2012 when I started Sky News Arabia, I wanted to go to Gaza and cover the war. I wanted to go to Syria, and a lot of the male editors would say, "Nah, we're not comfortable sending you. You're a female. If something happens to you." So sometimes you have the skills, you have the will, and then someone just comes say, "No, we're worried about you," and maybe that creates a little doubt in you that, oh no, maybe it is too dangerous. But this is what got me to start, and my first mission was in Afghanistan with the U.S. Navy, and that's partly because I have a American citizenship, so that gave me access to be embedded with American troops, and that made me unique. The access and the willingness to actually go to Kandahar and go to Afghanistan and cover these stories that nobody's telling.
Wow. So how did that feel? Like just being in those situations in that area. Like how did that make you feel? Were you nervous? Were you scared? Like
I was
describe
nervous.
the emotions that you were.
It felt so unreal to be. I spent nights on the Afghan. I remember sleeping on the border of Afghanistan, Pakistan, under a mountain, up in the open. But we were, I was with a unit, an American unit, that was training the Afghan border troops or troop patrols to take over the security of their area before the NATO troops withdraw from Afghanistan. So it was nerve-wracking to think, oh wow, literally, there's no tents, there's nothing. There's tons of military. There's Taliban, we are told, just a few miles away, and here we are. But then there's so many tanks and weapons and choppers flying around, Chinook helicopters, and then you see the other side that they have really modest weaponry. So in a sense, it was unreal, but on the other way, you're like, wow, I'm covering. I would have never dreamt that to be trusted to cover such a story. Wow. And mostly away from the military, the best part is covering the people's stories.
Yes, of course.
To talk to Afghans.
Yes.
And see how they live. You feel so small because we are all in our little beautiful bubble. And we rarely go out to such areas. It just made me have a different outlook on life in general.
Right. I can imagine. So you were at Sky News Arabia, and as a presenter and a producer, right? And you had a show called Sky News Arabia's First Daily show. What made you? Can you tell us a little bit more about that show and how that came about?
Yeah, another accident. So after doing military stories, I did that for a couple of years, 2 years. It was physically exhausting. I was on aircraft carriers. I was covering the flights of F-16s and F-18s and the strikes on ISIS targets in Iraq and Syria. Then it was during that time that I got married and found out that I was pregnant. And my doctor was like,
you can't do this anymore. This is it. It's a wrap for this.
Yeah. So I had to calm down, which really frustrated me because I got used to the rhythm. Getting these, you know how it is, the journalism bug.
Yes.
So here I was again in a place where, what other stories can I cover that nobody else is covering or very few people are covering? Otherwise, I'm just going to cover what everybody else is. And we're talking 2014, 2015. Twitter was just as a source of news was just picking up in the Middle East. It wasn't even taken seriously as a source of news.
Correct,
But as a BBC trained journalist, I am used to sourcing news from Twitter.
Right.
So I remember walking into one executive's office and I said, hey, I have a great idea. Why don't you let me source news from Twitter? Because I see so many young Arabs writing, expressing their opinions from different countries that we don't really get to interact with. and I can get them on screen. I can give them time. You know, they're launching businesses. They're doing really gutsy projects. And the first reaction was not so great. You know, I remember what he said was like, you're gonna reinvent the wheel. No, plus it's risky. You know, and it's true. That is risky to put someone who's not a professor or, you know, a former official or, you know, someone who's really young and just throw them on air is a big responsibility for an executive. So it took me a long time. It took me maybe 2 years to convince them that, you know, if I'm a journalist, I know how to source a story. Trust me that I'm not going to bring you someone who's going to say something, you know, liable or crazy on air. And little by little, what started as a small weekly segment. It was called, we ended up naming it تغريدة الصباح, or the morning tweet. Where I ended up having a daily segment, and then it was twice a day, and then they used to give me like 4 minutes, and then they gave me 6 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 up to 12 minutes, and I ended up interviewing some of what you now see the region's most famous names. You can see them in their first TV interview with me, and I'm so happy to see them boom and fly.
So you seem like you're a natural thrill seeker. Am I correct when I say that?
I get bored easy.
Because you mentioned about like risky. It's like you like risk when like other people say it's risk. Because everything worth a try. You know, and
So with the thrill seeking, like it seems like it's ingrained in your personality, and you know you dealt with the business and political aspect. How did you transition to like the digital social media world? Was that a big like transition just based on?
It was a mix of need. So in a sense, I realized, wow, I am sourcing good guests. I'm sourcing young entrepreneurs on social media. So I had to pick up my game, which meant that I had to be more active on social media. So they, as guests, trust me to tell their stories. You know, why should the young scientist or engineer in Cairo trust Jessy to tell his or her story? Why should the young producer in Riyadh trust Jessy to tell her story? And then it started picking up. What happened is you know how it is, but I felt that I had to build my credibility on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. I had to tell stories that were true, real, inspirational, and make a difference. And then people little by little started sourcing their own stories for their networks by following my feed, which was such a I was honored to see that. So it was a mix of both. It was a mix of need and then generating original content, which is the need in our business.
Do you feel on that part when you have that show that there was starting on too much pressure onto the story based onto the follower numbers? It's not anymore about the quality of the story, and that social media is harming the real story that we're wanting to tell. Because when you are a journalist, which is I am, you don't go beyond of how many follower likes and views. You go based on the story that need to be told, you know, because maybe you don't even have a social media presence. So it doesn't mean that your story is valuable. And I want to ask you the question. When you focus to creating like the tweet of the day, your shows, okay, you feel yourself in kind of challenge to bring real story worth beyond the existing social influence?
It was so تغريدة الصباح was it was a struggle and it was a reward. I had an executive producer who trusted my judgment and he supported my choices. So we had to discuss what you are saying now, which is, okay, why is a young doctor in Cairo who's doing YouTube stories about medical theories, why is she worth bringing to our network, which is a very big network, a regional network, when she only has 6,000 followers? So I had to make the case. Most of the time, he was convinced, so that's good for me. But there is that pressure, and maybe it's still on now with marketeers, with investors, with brands and corporates. They go for the big numbers because they think this is what generates advertisers' interest, and this is what's going to generate the money. And yet, again and again, I still tell you, Iman who was one of my guests, Layla Murad, Reem Nadar, all these young, bright talents
Yeah.
started with less than 10,000 followers, and now they've completely boomed. So what I wanted to say, and I hope I said it a little bit in Taghridat Sabah, my show, which is, or my segment, you know, give a little trust. Somebody trusted in you when you were younger. Okay, that was maybe before digital age, but I try to convey that in my trainings, even with recruiters. You know, somebody trusted in you early on. Try to pass it on, and hopefully you have the right tools to choose those names. But yeah, the pressure is there, and I think the pressure on the, let's say, content creators is more so than on us journalists.
You remind me of the singing dentist. There was famous singing dentist, and he go
exactly.
viral.
And now he's
So he was like singing for his patient, you know, just he's so talented, but he go like viral on the social media, you know. And the reason why I asked Jessy about this topic, it is like the point of like the pressure on term of a content creator or like people starting. There is no more like the scene like the zero. It has to be like 100. But it doesn't make any sense. You cannot go like 100.
You can go from 0 to 100 without going through the process.
Yes, and the reality when it comes to like story coverage is like that's the most critical like time when you bring that story, because when you already establish influencer, the coverage is not anymore like changing what he's doing. You know, so it's really the show that you create. It is all about trend. Trend doesn't mean an established story. It's someone starting. It's just creating that buzz, right?
It's setting the trends.
And I was really lucky at Sky, because you know they could have said, you know what, it's too risky. And they did, you know, and I would completely understand, because I see where they're coming from.
Correct.
And sometimes it's frustrating for us to say, oh, I wish you could see things from my perspective, but they did see it, and then it did happen. And I started up these topics, and I tell you, some of the most fascinating things is when I used to source the guest and pick up the phone and say, you know, Layla or Iman or Michelle, you know, here's one. She used to, here's a case. She used to be in Dubai. She used to work in the travel agents industry, hotel and travel, for years. And then she started this, decided to leap and do her own business in organizing travels, right? Exclusive travels, eco travels, and she quit her job to do so. And when I first called her up, she had just started, and she goes, "What, me? You want to put me on air? What? Why?" You know, she had all the right, like, and now her business is flourishing on Instagram, and that was less than. We're talking less than 2 years ago. They all have, all of them. This I cannot tell you how many times I heard this sentence. Me? You want to put me on air? Well, I'm just, you know, I haven't made it big yet. And I said, that's exactly why I want you, because I know the content you are putting up. And I, you know, and even if it doesn't work, sometimes, let's, maybe in a small, they don't work, but then their original idea didn't work, but then they shifted it to another idea. I'll give you another example from Cairo. He was a young artist who wasn't selling a lot of paintings. And he, one time, really frustrated, he used to draw really nice abstracts.
Of course,
And he had a very nice, what I thought, I'm not a art expert, but I thought as a user on Facebook, he had an interesting Facebook page for his pieces of art that he wasn't selling very much. And then one day he saw his friend graduating from the Arts Academy, and he was selling used puppets. You know, the old wooden puppets, right? And he was gonna throw them away or get rid of them. He goes, you know, give me one. Just I'll take one. I'll buy one from you. And he bought this female-looking puppet, and he put a dress on her, like an Oriental dancer dress. Okay, and one day he's just bored, put on the music, put the puppet, maybe 10-15 seconds, on a very Oriental Arabic music, and started dancing the puppet, and threw the video on his Facebook. 2 million views later. What happened? He used this video, which is unrelated to you know, not really related to paint, to attract traffic to his page.
Right.
And then, you know, the puppet started having a name. Her name is Aziza.
Yes, yes.
And then Aziza started having different outfits and different dances. And his cat, he used to have a studio and a black cat. Sometime the cat would come between the camera and the Aziza. You can imagine. So the brilliance sometimes of creating content is not marketing the content itself, but it's looking within you for another skill to use to market that content, which is what I discovered is really happening a lot across the Middle East. You just have to have the eye to find it.
Yeah. And it's about finding the authenticity within everything. And I think that's something that most people don't really understand within the social media world is being authentic to who you are in order to grow your brand, whatever you're selling, because everybody's selling something at the end of the day, even if it is themselves. But finding that authenticity within the branding. Like I know, you know, like with VVIP and the great platform that we have here, you know, the guests that we're bringing in and the people that we're talking to, and they all have the similar things in common, and that's, you know, authenticity. You know, so
that's the thing, like why we are really like kind of advocate these things, because if we really look at from different perspective, it's like social media selling everything is easy, you know, just like starting and then it's easy, you know. But when you're starting doing it, you find it's really hard, because really like if you just see like that 15-second video, maybe take 1 hour to create that idea, to write it down, to film it, to add the audio, to edit it, to make that videos. And not everyone willing to put that time dedication, because everyone you ask, oh, I'm busy, and everyone life is busy, you know. But for this certain vertical, you know, everyone responsible when it comes to what it tells on media, because maybe something really can influence people on the wrong way. Because we see a lot of motivation, but we don't see nobody talking about failures. I'm sure, like if you ask Jessy any story, like she can share with us. She did like she go to something that you fail, but she learned, because failure is part of experience. We are talking about everyone have experience, but how you have experience without failures.
And that's the biggest key. You learn, like you said, you learn from the mistakes.
You know? I think this is, we were discussing this earlier, that this is something we're learning in this part of the world, that failure is, and I think we picked that up from the States. I mean, I learned this
of course.
from my time in America, that, you know, they do glorify failure when it teaches you something, a valuable lesson. Most of the time, most of the people we see who have made it big, name it, have went through a series of experiences that maybe would be considered failure, but it's your willingness to recalibrate yourself, recalibrate your vision, maybe your plan, a lot of things to change, and then you know, step out of it. We were mentioning Oprah, we were mentioning Steve Jobs, Zuckerberg. Everybody has gone through. But over here, still we have the, you know, I was telling you, still in the Middle East, sometimes talking about failure is like a big taboo.
Yes.
You know, no, I didn't fail. Even when they talk to you about failure, you see they lowered their voice. I launched a company, but I didn't do so well, so I shut it down. So what? That's
embrace that part. That's the part you need to embrace and pay attention to, because that's what created what's happening now.
Embrace the part that you launched a company. I mean, launching a company itself, even if it failed, is itself an adventure. But then again, those people that I tell you about who may have and you know how startups launch and fail all the time, now are so successful doing something else. Something completely different. So you pivot and pivot and pivot and pivot until.
And I like to use the acronym SUCKS, which stands for Screw Ups Create Killer Success. You know, and that's the screw ups is what counts. You know, to me, and how I vision everything. So when I go through my own set of unique failures or disappointments, I would say, and they don't work out the way I picture them. You know, I know that it's just me growing. And the way for me to grow is just showing me, hey, I need to grow in this area of life.
And not only that, beyond failures, there is very important process for everyone careers. You know, when you talk about Steve Jobs and everything, is a rejection. You know, not everyone have the same mentality when it comes to rejection, because the rejection doesn't happen in front of the camera. It happens in the offline. It's like when you go for a meeting or talking about something and people rejecting what you are doing and said you're crazy, this is too risky.
Yeah.
Right.
And too risky is become forbidding right now. It's like it has to be everything safe.
Right.
And let's do it.
Yep.
But if it's really there is even 1% risky, let's not do it or even discuss it.
Yeah, right, and that's why I look at things as an opportunity as opposed to a risk. So
Yes.
even when I work with students and they label the students at-risk students, I like to use the term at opportunity because you look at anything as a risk, you're less likely to invest in it, whether it's time, whether it's money, whether it's anything.
Yeah.
But if you look at it as an opportunity, you look at it as a chance for us to win. And so I always say, I use the term risk opportunity versus risk.
Yeah.
Look, rejection is. It's hard. It's you have the first shock.
Yeah.
I remember one of the stories I had was when I was applying for graduate school, and I received a rejection from a very good school in Chicago. And the devastation, the drama that all my family, all the house lived with me, the tears, you know.
Yes.
And I remember the letter itself was harsh.
Yes, it was harsh.
The letter, it's the wording, like it's okay. I know you as a university, you cannot accept every single applicant.
Right.
But you don't have to basically tell them, hey, we don't think you have what it takes to be a journalist and get on. Like, what?
Right.
You know, I mean...
It's a social club.
I mean, come on, be easy. I mean, put me down easy. Of course, it was completely devastating. I was still in my early 20s and I thought it was the end. That's it. It's the end of my dream. I'm never going to be a journalist. Maybe I'm not meant. If this famous university thinks I don't have what it takes, then maybe they are right. You know, they do let you. A week later, I got into Emerson College and I'm super happy that I did. So, and I was like, who cares about that? I'm going to Emerson.
Right.
And then when I started getting the jobs with big networks, it really taught me a lot that, never let what one organization, one CEO, one college, whoever they are, no matter how high they are, never let them change what you think you have to do. And I see it every day with people I've worked with guests I interviewed. Everybody's dealt with rejection.
Right.
As long as you keep going, someone will open that door for you.
100%.
And when time comes, and it will, when you've made it or you've achieved some of what you think is success to you, there will come a time when you will face those people or those organizations that shut the door in your face, and you'll be like, haha.
Right. You're on the opposite end at that point, right?
Yeah. You interview like a lot of startup and entrepreneur, How you feel, Jessy, like to go closer to these people who are really like so much inspiring to talk to? They are so much like dreamers and kind of like them story is so inspiring. Maybe you can share with us some like.
They're like you.
Yes.
They're a lot like you.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think I must say that they inspire me. So at first it was me seeking their story because I wanted original story to put on the network that I was working for. During the interviews, the young lady who started her travel, the young lady who started her YouTube channel, the other one who started selling abayas and designing abayas on Instagram, I remember during the interview thinking, wow, I want to do that.
Yeah.
And I genuinely, you can tell by the questions I would ask them, the first thing I would ask them is, what did your family say?
Yes.
When you told them you want to quit medicine and go do this or quit being an engineer from 9 to 5 and go travel the world and film it on YouTube, which by the way doesn't make millions, which is what people think.
It make people happy.
Yeah, it just makes you happy. So seeing that passion in their eyes, seeing them talk about, I travel the world, I sleep in hostels, but I gain so much experience. No book is going to give me that.
Yeah.
And no 9 to 5 or 9 to 9 job is going to give me that. Did inspire me in a way to say that, okay, I'm going to one day do the leap. And I think that one day has come.
Wow.
So you decided to take that next leap of faith.
Yes.
That leap of faith, and by going as independent media and contracting, right?
Not only that, a big goodbye on Twitter, which is not letter of resignation, but also like a tribute video,
I did it.
Very emotional,
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that? A little bit more about your next venture,
Yeah, sure. So
how you felt like when you're writing that email of
the goodbye email.
yes, and there is some emotion, right? Because
you have to bring it out. You have to bring it out.
It's not like shifting from weather to business. It's not from business to war. It's like Goodbye.
It's
From
good.
the
It's
same place.
goodbye.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
For 15 years.
Goodbye.
It's
15
emotional.
Years of pure journalism
Yes.
to
Yeah.
consulting.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very emotional.
Yes.
I cried.
Yes,
I
of
did
course.
cry. Okay, here you go. I said it.
Yes.
There were some tears.
Yes.
But and I remember when I wrote it, I kept thinking to myself, okay, don't focus on what you're leaving.
Yeah.
Think of what's coming. And what helped me do the switch
Yeah.
is that I felt that in my career, the jobs, the various TV roles I've done, I've went
Yeah.
from journalist to field production,
Yeah.
to producer, to presenter, to correspondent. I've learned what I can.
Yeah.
I've reached my peak
Yeah.
as to what I think Jessy should know what to do.
Yeah.
So I reached the point where literally you can throw me anywhere with a laptop or without a laptop. I could go live, write you a script, interview anyone that I haven't even seen before.
Yeah.
And I've had instances where I was doing lives and then someone brings in a senior government official and says, we have an interview.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
So it stopped challenging me. And
Right.
that's what made it easier for me to say, I want something that makes me leap of excitement, that makes me nervous again.
Yes.
I stopped
Yes.
being nervous.
Yes.
You know, I remember there were times when I would be on air during my segment, and something crazy would happen, like the guest doesn't show up, you know, or the teleprompter just drops. And at first when that happened, like, oh, what do we do? The guest doesn't show up. But you know what happens? And there's like, you know, things happening in the control room. And then towards the last year or two, like, oh, teleprompter drops. Jessy, you have 3 minutes of airtime to fill. Yep, no problem, got it. You know, done. And so that's good in a way. That means you know, you gained a lot of experience and you mastered something, but it means you stop being challenged.
Yeah.
Right.
And that made it easier for me. And plus, I think I enjoyed slowly getting inquiries from big government entities seeking my knowledge, seeking my experience, seeking my expertise and advice on how to do a communication strategy, how to deal with the media, how to deal with the Middle Eastern audience, how to deal with Arab youth on social media. And this is when I felt, okay, I have something that I haven't used, that I can help others and make a new venture for myself. And that's why I leaped.
You asked the influencer about what your family say. Did you ask your family about the decision and how you felt it? That's why I want to ask you the question.
I did consult, but I consulted with my family almost after I had made the decision, not before.
Good.
But I mean, I did get support. They all supported me. I got the support I needed, and they all said, you know, go ahead. It's time. You do it. If it doesn't work out, everything will be fine. You can get a job anywhere.
Yes,
and
of course.
And I was like, well, you know, it's not easy. You know, I did have self-doubt. I'm not going to say I jumped and said, oh, I'm going to launch the biggest firm in the world. No. There was some self-doubt. There was some fear. You know, letting go of this security of the steady income is not easy. But then I started getting projects. Media projects, consulting projects. And what really hit me is I went to 3 clients to acquire a short-term project, consulting project. So here I am, like getting my consultant purse and my, you know, consultant clothes, and I'm going on my first 2 to 3 clients, and
it's like excitement go first day at the university, right?
During the first day of college, and
Yeah.
oh, really? I'm a consultant?
Yeah.
I'm a consultant, right? I'm a
This is
consultant.
happening.
Yeah.
This is happening. I'm a consultant. And I got when I say, okay, Jessy, this is a project 1, 2, 3. Can you do this in this amount of time? Yeah, done. Then at the end of the meeting, you know what, Jessy, we think you should just work with us full time. I'm like, no.
I hate that.
Oh,
Defeats the purpose.
I don't want to work with you full time.
Yeah.
No, you should, because it won't work. We can't give you the project. I'm like, why? You just said I have all the skills. You know I have it. Here's my portfolio. They're like, you have an excellent portfolio. Problem is, you'll be competing with us if we give it to you as a freelancer. I'm like, you're a corporate.
You gotta compete. See.
And then that really actually gave me the push, and I said, if corporates are not already thinking this way, then I should just go and do it. And so these things help you a lot. You will go through self-doubt, but there will be a lot of other factors that will help you fly, which you've seen as well.
I appreciate that. You know, what she mentions is true, you know, because I think they don't say it in front of the camera. It is reality when you face it yourself.
Right.
Because she's going for a consultancy project, you know, and she don't think like big corporate think as a threat for one person.
Yes.
Because they don't sell that culture, you know.
Right.
But when you go in that meeting room, you find like different reality.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that why we need to understand that sometimes that kind of environment doesn't need to demotivate you. You need always to be motivated because the things not need to stop you because obstacle is part of the process, you know.
And they tempt you.
Yes.
There will be temptation.
Yes.
They tempt you with a pretty good salary.
Yes.
I must say.
Yes.
It was like they dangled that carrot
Yes.
and I said,
Yes.
I don't want it. Don't do it. Like
Yes.
I don't want it full time.
Yes.
So I had to, I had to force myself to
Yes.
tell the lady in front of me that,
Of course.
like, you know what? No, just no. It's almost like chocolate and my love for chocolate when I'm on a diet. Jessy, no.
But this is true, Jessy.
Yeah,
You know,
fulfill your passion.
because it's really like happening, you know. Sometimes you build something, you know, and then someone come to you when you are so excited and say, "Hey, I'm gonna buy it from you," and then you give a crazy price, you know.
Right.
But the problem that you don't understand is like when you wake up in the morning, you are excited on doing these things.
Right. Yeah. it's
So
your
how
passion.
much valuable
Yep.
selling the thing that you are passionate about?
Yeah.
Yep.
Because next day you have money in the bank account, but you have nothing to do.
Right.
And then that's so sad.
Even better is, you could, I could make a decent salary
Yes.
doing this, but I could be doing this for myself.
Of course.
Yeah.
So I probably will do it, more, better. I will grow it. I will
Yes.
do it based on my vision.
Yes.
Based on what I want to fulfill, not what someone wants to fulfill, and
Right.
not really all the time very commercial.
Yeah.
Right.
There are things I like to do with no return at all.
Yeah.
Because I enjoy teaching youngsters how to write a script for TV.
Correct.
I enjoy doing workshops, not necessarily because I'm making any money out of it. I enjoy working with NGOs. I
Yes.
enjoy, so there's a lot of unfulfilled activities that you can do on your own that you cannot do as an employee simply
Right.
because A, you don't have the time.
Yep.
B, nobody's gonna hire you so you can do stuff for free just because it makes you happy.
And as well as sometimes, you're a direct competitor, into some places like you experience thus far. So what do you think makes a great journalist?
What do I think makes a great? The eye to pick up the story. This is number one. Everything else you can train. So, and you know that.
Yes, of course,
Someone can train you how to write better.
Yes.
Right.
Someone can train you how to film or edit
Yeah.
or put the nuances of the audio and music and what I call salt and
Yes.
pepper. These things can be taught.
Correct.
Right.
The eye to know and identify a good story, I think, is what differentiates many journalists, because you could see the same story was there on social media for everybody to see, but only a few journalists picked it up, one or two. And I think that's what makes a difference.
Before back in time, you wait like for a week or 2 weeks or a month to wait for an interview on a magazine with one celebrity.
And now, even now,
Yes.
some traditional networks
Yes.
who are falling behind,
Exclusive.
they still wait for the news agencies
Yes.
to file those day-to-day stories
Yep.
from the market, from whatever it is. I mean, sourcing original content via social media is a talent.
I think this is something like I want to share as well with the audience are watching, which is this is one of the reason like I quit as well like a news corporate that I was working for, because the passion of the journalism that I study, it is to creating the story.
Right.
And then I found that that things fade and it become just buying from existing news agency.
Yeah.
Which is getting intense. It's like, wait a minute, you don't have to go to the field.
Right.
We're gonna give you the footage and the video,
Right.
and just be like a commentator on football game.
Right.
And you end up in a lot of morning shows. You
Yes.
see the same story at the same time.
Exactly, same footage.
On different networks, it's the
Yes.
same footage, same
footage,
headline.
same headline,
So I mean,
Which is killing the excitement of creating the story, because creating the story have different thing than just getting story and commenting.
Right.
So now traditional media become more onto reaction YouTube channels.
Right.
So they're getting the existing footage, which is by the news agency, and then they just reaction.
rewrite it. Sometimes they don't even rewrite the story.
Yes.
Sometimes they just take it as is.
Exactly. And the other like sad point that the region itself, it is full of story that if you just tell, you will not have space to even like talk about it. There's a lot of story that international news agency, they pick it and then people he was here in Dubai. We
They
don't
don't
know,
know. They didn't
you know,
know,
and
yeah.
then they pick it after.
Yeah.
And I was saying, wait a minute. If there is kind of story just next to your door, and then it was broadcast by Reuters or other,
Right.
and then regional media are not capturing it, there is something that's not correct.
Yep.
So the right thing that is you need to think about story, and when you're thinking about story, you need to work on the space and you need to focus on your own area, because if you don't capture your own area, you cannot expand.
Right.
You
Right.
know?
That's true.
And this is why I think like there is a challenge between traditional media and new media. And Jessy is really so much expert in this space, which is right now she's sourcing news from social media.
Yeah.
You know, and then discovering talent from social media.
Right.
So you don't need any more endorsement to cover that story.
Right.
So you have a wide library to pick up everything, and even like I want to have some kind of scoop to break news. You know, I think Jessy is working in a book.
Yeah. The inside scoop.
We can edit it or like.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. Let's get some excitement.
I haven't announced it,
We
so
will not-
you'll be the
Yeah. So we have exclusive. Jessy is working on the book. So because we cannot cover a lot of story, but I think I'm gonna be buying the first copy.
Oh,
So
wow, okay.
Gotta get it signed.
Yes.
Okay, I tell you what, since
Yes.
we broke it here, you don't have to buy it. It will be my gift to you. Thank you.
yeah, because it's really exciting. You know, it's not only that. I feel so much appreciation from Jessy to find time to write a book, because the role of the book.
I don't have the time, but I don't
Yes,
know how to
making
do
the
it.
time, making the time to write a book, because the book is telling things that keeping other people learning.
Right.
We learn by teaching in the school, but we go by a book to learn other story.
Right.
So book is a kind of like bridge relationship of knowledge that is really good to have contribution to the society, right? Because all of us, we read even one book in our life. You know, I read books like crazy about books,
Yeah.
because in books,
Me too.
like you can read the story, but you can see what is fit for you. You know, and that's so inspiring, because books prove history, and we go to history, you see that if you want to do something, there is obstacle, but there is result.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of things to learn from it. So I'm so excited about your book. You know.
I know I cannot reveal much, but
Yes, of course.
But I wanted to write something to يعني that's not just a book on the shelf. I wanted to write something that's useful and that teaches a certain chunk of professionals maybe new skills that are easy to acquire.
Yes.
So it's more like a guide maybe, but I will be sure to come here when it's ready.
Of course, and we have a lot of women audience, you know. So if you want to starting like your journalism careers, here Jessy, she's a good example, you know, and you can really like learn a lot from what she's doing in her career, and she's very, very, really like open to learn, because she's big believer on the region, she's big believer on this really like creativity space. So you can reach her out on her social medias, ask her questions, you know.
I'm here at Jessy Trends.
Yes,
all my social
of course,
media.
you know. And wait for the book. We will let you know on the date of the releasing of the publishing.
So before we get out of here, can you tell people who may be watching a little bit about how to break into journalism, and you know, how to go about pursuing a career in journalism?
I would say to start from the beginning. I see a lot of young, especially young ladies, who are in or who get into journalism for the wrong reasons. I don't want to hear someone tell me I want to be a journalist because I want to be on camera and I want to be famous. You know, I want to read the news because I like the flair, the prestige that comes with being a news anchor. That's just getting into it for the wrong reason, and you're not going to get anywhere, because I can tell you there's so many beautiful faces of news anchors that nobody knows who their name is. You see them, you know, she reads the news every day, but nobody knows who she is.
Right.
So I would say if you want to get into journalism, learn how to write a story, go get internships, knock on news. You know, if you didn't study journalism, let's say if you're starting from scratch, and you're still thinking what to do, knock on newspapers, websites, TV stations, radio stations doors, and say, hey, I have a few hours a week. You know, I'd like to intern. And learn everything from scratch. Learn how to write, learn how to edit. I used to write and edit and back in college, and this is why I enjoyed getting my master's. It was such a hands-on. It teaches us how to be a one-man show. Luckily, I didn't have to do that when I started practicing, but because I learned how you do all these things, it helped me write unique stories, have different perspective. It helped me cooperate with my team members rather than say, oh no, that's not my job, that's the editor's job, that's the cameraman's job to get this shot. No, sometimes because I have a different perspective, I see an angle that maybe the cameraman hasn't seen. So I tell him. So I see a lot in young upcoming professionals. I see a lot of, oh no, I don't want to learn anything to do with editing or camera work. I just I just want to be on TV. And that doesn't get you very far. No. It might get you the typical on-camera job, but then what? You know, you're going to be a presenter all your life. Then what?
Yes. Also, like, since like we're talking about business here and entrepreneurship, you know, so there is a lot of like we get a lot of this question about startups that are working on our product. And what is your advice how to pitch media on your product or your company or what you are doing, you know?
How to
pitch media. How to really like, because the same thing, like it's some great product or some great companies, but they have that kind of like paranoia. Oh, how we can to the media, you know? Is it how we're gonna speak and everything? So we want to kind of help them in terms of like free consultation. How you can pitch the media or how you can create your own.
Honestly, it's not so hard. It's not so hard. It's think of the media as someone that you, as a acquaintance, a friend, a family member. Tell your project, your story, whatever it is, the way you would tell it to a friend. And I say this in my media workshops all the time and my media training. No matter how complicated your idea is, if you cannot explain it in 2 maximum simple sentences, then it's too complicated. So any project you have, any startup you have, any technical idea, no matter how hardcore it is, if you cannot simplify it in 2 sentences, go back to your project and rework it. You just gotta have an idea that is sellable, that is useful, obviously. If it's entertaining, great. If it's not, maybe it's educational, whatever the sector is, be ready to explain it to a simple friend. And sometimes I say this also in my media training for government officials. Government officials have this wrong maybe misconcept that they have to speak in a high level vocab or high level idea in order to reach the masses and make an impression that they know what they're talking about, while the opposite is true. The truth is, your audience, most of the time, unless it's a very specialized audience, the truth is your audience want to hear simple sentences, simple ideas, and most importantly, things that may affect their daily lives. So if you have these 3 things together, media, who's behind every media? You know, think of the largest media you can think of. At the end of the day, you're reaching a producer who is a human, who could be a mom, a dad, you know, people like us. So think of it the other way around. If someone called you with this idea, what would you say? If you put yourself in their shoes as a normal person and you think, I'm not sure this is interesting. Make it interesting by make it relatable to people's daily lives.
It's really amazing. Inspiring.
I think that's the best advice I can give.
This is so inspiring. Jessy, where do you see like the upcoming like 5 years, like what you are working on, like just like general thought, you know?
I think launching my firm would be my dream. I can see this hopefully, or this is what I'm going to work for.
Of course.
To launch my media, my communication consulting firm. It's been a long time dream that's time to achieve.
Of course, yeah.
I see myself doing a lot additional workshops, but maybe varied
Regional,
topics.
yeah.
Regional.
Yeah.
Some of them would be corporate, some of them government, some of them free for college students.
Wow.
Which I'd love to do, benefiting them and teaching them how to use social media to create their own brand.
Wow.
And I want to hopefully sell this idea and convince Arab youth that each and every one of you is a brand. You all are brands. Every single one of you is a brand.
Yeah.
Yep.
The key is whether you have the passion and the tools to market it.
Yep.
So you know how when they say content is king, but no king is really big without a queen.
Of course,
the queen
yes.
is marketing.
Yeah.
You
Right.
gotta market
That's
yourself.
good. Of course. Yeah,
And
like
I
that.
see so many skills, so many young bright skills that just need a little push to know how to market that skill, to know
Right.
how to put that sentence in the pitch.
course, yeah.
So hopefully this is what I like to focus on next few years.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Jessy. I think we need to cover the last point, which is very important, and I keep it for the last, which is like you work so closely about social media in the last couple of years, and you see that transition of social media as a new platform enter the market, and you have your own like view of social media trend on the millennium now. So how you feel on that transitions with the new platform entering the market, increasing the number of the the vertical of that influencer, and more on comedians, more into like funny stuff, more music. So what is your view on the social media right now status, and how you think like what's gonna be like next?
Okay, if we want to look at it from a numbers perspective,
Yes.
pure numbers, yes, what you're saying is true. The number one, still most consumed topics in the Middle East, let's say in the region, when it comes to social media, is either entertainment, so fashion, makeup, or travel, or sports.
Correct.
Okay, so this is numbers wise. However, if you want to look at it from a quality perspective, I give you again the example of Taghridat Sabah. I used to source so many original content that is about science, physics, astronomy. They are there.
Yeah.
So the variety of young Arabs doing original content aside from travel and sports and fashion is there.
Yeah.
All I want to say is I hope no matter how many new platforms we get now with TikTok and others that are going to come up, I hope that we use them in this region to focus on these original stories, original content creators that maybe are launching things that is not the majority, or it's not what's under the spotlight.
Of course, yeah.
So I hope we give them more credit.
Yeah.
There's so many more. I could have continued if I chose to stay and do these kind of shows. I could have continued sourcing guests, and I have on a daily basis. I used to source, and they exist. I just hope we focus on them more as journalists in this region, using these new platforms.
Of course, yes. We see right now like big changes in terms of like new platform enter the market, like Netflix, you know, and YouTube Premium.
Yes,
So we
they're
see right now
focused,
booming right now onto
They were
original
forced.
shows. Yes.
They were forced
They
to
were
pivot
forced.
towards original content.
Yes, because you are having paid subscriber. You cannot have paid subscriber,
Right.
and then when you go to your original content on the region, you
It's
find
dubbed
nothing.
or
You know,
translated,
because why? When they expanded to other new market globally, normally they have kind of like at least starting with 10% of their library original content. You know, but this is gonna be forced them because it's kind of competition, and competition is good for quality.
Yeah.
Right.
Because when there's competition,
Sure.
everyone starting
Up your game.
Yes, everyone upper them
You
games.
can't be number one without a number two.
Yes, of course. Like now, even for music streaming, you know, before we have only one platform, you know, and then like jumping other platform, it's not like anymore like give me your music and for free. It's become more into like exclusive music and that kind of challenge. And I feel like there is a lot of things gonna be happen on social media, you know, and everyone check Jessy Trend website. It's coming soon.
Yes. Yes, website is coming soon.
Website's
in a few
coming
weeks.
soon. We're gonna make party, you know, for the launching of the website, counting down, you know. And if you want to know more about Jess, you can find her on social media and everything. I feel there is a lot of things waiting for you. We are exciting
Thank
on the
you.
new journey,
Thank
you know, and we love to have you on another episode with the book.
Yeah.
Yes.
With a new baby.
Yeah, with the new baby. And if want to say the last thing, you know, before we wrap up this episode, you know, for all millenniums and young people here in the region who are watching us, you know, don't let people criticize you of not starting your idea. You might have something in your head, you want to start it, and maybe it's not fit, maybe it's like new. People always rejecting something new, you
Yes,
know,
it's
especially in
true.
social media.
True.
Jessica, she's one of the new who starting believing in this, creating like entire show on social media.
Right.
And I'm sure that pitch of idea was crazy. No,
Yeah.
social media is
Yeah.
not real. We don't
Yeah.
need to be part of the media thing, you know.
Right.
So everything starting is something new, and when you're starting to do something new, people criticize you know. So you have to believe in that, and you have to do something really like you are passionate about, regardless of all that pressure and bullying on social media, because no one's starting with that number of followers. You need to focus on the content and don't focus on the numbers that you want to start. Because right now I have big faith on the region content creator, you know, an entrepreneur, and everyone have that responsibility, as Jesse mentioned, that everyone himself is a brand.
Yep.
And when you are a brand yourself, you need to really believe in yourself, so that other people can listen to your story. And we wish everyone the best.
Yep.
And if you have any question, please reach out to us on info@vvip.co. And don't forget to subscribe and follow us on social media. We're going to bring more inspiring story to our show. And wait for Jesse book. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching.